Hello and thank you for joining me. Here's another little update video. Now the other day I played with the band Storm Deva, who I've talked about before here on my channel. They got in contact with me, when I say they, Stuart and Carolyn got in contact with me just at the back end of COVID. They'd seen me perform with Lorena McKinnett in Birmingham, I believe, and enjoyed what they saw, and saw that I was on Facebook at the time, and it would have been Twitter. And they contacted me and asked if I'd be interested in working with them on an album, which I did. And that album, Storm Deva, is now available to buy and to stream. And it's an amazing record. And I've said about this before, that it was one of those things that I needed that project at that time. I really connected with both Carolyn and Stuart. We used to have lots of FaceTime calls and talk about the music and life in general and everything else. And we just really got on, and when you get that sort of connection and that bond pretty quick, it's, something good's going to happen. And they sent me the tracks, and I sat there with headphones on and worked through my thoughts, things it reminded me of. I could picture ways I'd like to take the drums and the dynamic. Obviously a lot of the dynamics were there in the guitar and the piano already, and the vocal interpretation, but it's still good for you to, as a drummer, to be able to see the music. It's almost like I could see a map of the songs, and I could see where I could take it. And then also my influences, what influences would I use in my interpretation of that music. And I'm not the biggest prog fan. I mean, some of my friends are way more into it than me. Mine's pretty much on the level, I would say, that most people would know, even in like a pop quiz or something. But yeah, so I was hearing elements of Yes in the music. So then, of course, I could reference the ideas of Alan White and Bill Bruford. Also Emerson, Lake and Palmer as well. And it was just kind of seeing a different element. I think the female vocal, because Carolyn's vocal is very, very different, very characteristic, and very personal to her. It's amazing, as you'll know when you check it out. So I was hearing a bit of Kate Bush in there as well. So anyway, all these things like a maelstrom in my head, and I would make these notes, and then we would meet every, once a week, maybe twice a week online, because it was, COVID. So we'd sit and we'd talk about it, and I'd throw all these influences and say, look, I can hear it going a bit like this. And it was like, yeah, we like that. So yeah, as I say, when you get that sort of meeting, creative minds coming together. So we did the drums, recorded the drums down at NARM Studios with Tyler Spicer engineering. It was brilliant. And then, it all went out into the world, and I played drums and percussion on it, blah, blah, blah. And it goes out in the world. And then the guys start contacting me and saying they've got Pete on bass, and now Sheila Maloney on keyboards as well. So the band's getting bigger. And we did one gig in London at the Camden Club in Camden, surprisingly, in London, which went really well. It was like a prog rock afternoon with a few other bands. That was really cool. And then we did this one that's just gone. So the 4th of October in Chepstow at the Drill Hall, which is a really nice little venue, really cute. And we were the first band on at the Summer's End Festival. And I've got to say, it was brilliant. We were on at 12 in the morning. And I thought, oh, this could be, a bit of a graveyard shift here. But by about 11:30, quarter to 12, the place was packed. And they were all at the front. It was like brilliant. It wasn't that thing where people sort of hang back. They were right at the front, and it was brilliant. Some with Storm Deva t-shirts on. Yeah, really cool. And we had a great performance, and it's a great band. And anyone looking at, thinking, oh, Rob only maybe does this, that, and that, then, you may know me for the jazz thing, I don't know, or Susie or Lorena or whatever, or my own quartet stuff if you're local, I don't know. But, that gives a different side. It demonstrates a different side to my playing, the more prog elements. And it's a challenge to play. There's a section which goes from 6 into 9, which isn't too bad, obviously. But it's the riffs that go on around it that can be, and the spaces that can be a bit off-putting. And then there's 4 lots of 6, and then a 10, and then groups of 16. You know, anyway, it's I'm no good at maths anyway. Mathematics isn't a strong point for Rob. So yeah, having these numbers flying around can be a little bit like, whoa, what's going on? What's going on? But yeah, the way I like to feel it is to feel, obviously get the counting system sorted, but then feel the groove, how that sits with it, and then understand the riff. And then listen to that riff as a melody. The fact that it's not in 4 or 3, you know, sort of standard times, and the fact that it's in 9 or 16 or 17 or whatever, 21, it doesn't really matter. You know, it's befriend the riff, befriend the music, understand that, and understand the mathematics, and then eventually it all comes together. That's the way I do it. So if you're ever worried about things like that, listen to the riff without the counting system, and then come back into that later. And if it's written out, great, then come back to seeing it written out later, because it might make some more sense to you. But yeah, it's always an interesting process working on odd times. So yeah, we did that gig. It went down really well. There will be more gigs into next year. We're all extremely busy, so it's kind of hard to get us together. But Carolyn and Stuart are the main leaders, because Carolyn is the main writer, and she sings and plays the piano, and Stuart plays the electric guitar. I sound like a school teacher. And we've got Pete on bass, and as I say, Sheila on keyboards. So we've got a nice little setup here, and we can fire off a lot of the sounds that were on the album now, because we've got Sheila on keyboards, so she can add that extra depth. Whereas before we were thinking about playing it to track, and that's okay, but you know, once you're on the grid, you're on the grid, and you can't come off of that. You know, so God forbid if there's any little, you know, prog rock 17/8 mistakes, in real time, we can always land and sort it out. But with a backing, you know, it can get a little tricky, because that's going to go on regardless. And if we can't find our way from there, it's dangerous. But as I say, it's a great band. I really love that it gives me a chance to play a different kind of style of drumming out there in the world that people don't always get to see me play, or may not even know that I enjoyed prog rock and like to play it. Yeah, so that's that. So that was good. So go to the website. The website is here, and go and check them out. And there'll be some things on YouTube as well. And go and stream the album Storm Deva, because it's really, really cool. And I think it's well worth a listen when you're in that kind of mood. Okay, guys. So there was a little catch up on that. I've got to do more of these. And there's one on Tom Moriarty, which I'll talk about probably in the next video. So anyway, take care, guys. Have a great day. Thanks for tuning in. Remember to like and share and subscribe, and go and check out Storm Deva.